Hi, Dr. P here to talk about 5 ways to avoid leader bashing. Now, leader bashing is not quite a neutral term. A better term is trying to pull back the leader so they won't win. And this is a feature of multi-sided games, usually conflict games. If it's two-sided, then attacking the leader is expected. If it's a single-player game, then you attack the computer and the opposition. So it acts like a two-sided game. So this subject is for games for 3 or more players who are separate sides. The problem is, when it's too easy to attack the leader, no one wants to be the leader until the very end of the game, which pretty much skews the game. An epitome of this is the game Winky or Vinci, where people want to be second or third place in the last round. So we're interested in methods that prevent excessive attacking of the leader. You, the designer, has to decide what's excessive. So you have to decide how often the leader, say halfway through a 4-player game, should be the leader, that is the winner at the end. 50%? 75%? 25%? Something else? I'd say 50%. 75 is too much. It doesn't give players enough hope to want to be the leader. 25% smells of leader bashing because everybody's ganging up on the leader. I misspoke. 75% means there's plenty of hope for whoever's leading at the midpoint. And my experience with one of my prototypes, which is I've never offered for publication, was that players were playing and I was keeping track of things and then realized that whoever led at the halfway point was usually winning the game. At that point you say, why bother with the first half of the game? Or maybe why bother with the second half of the game? You can look at it both ways. So I had to modify that game extensively so that I got rid of that problem. The problem didn't come from leader bashing, really. It just came from the way the game worked. So you can have this problem without leader bashing, but leader bashing is often the main cause of this problem. And of course, these percentages also depend on the number of players. If you have 6 players, then the percentages are going to be different than for 4 players, as in this example. Now, imagine a card game in which you can attack anyone at the table, and it's clear who leads. Frequently, the players are going to attack the leader. Now the problem with that, or one of the problems with that, is it removes most player agency. It's just too obvious to attack the leader, so there's no real choice for most players. There will be exceptions. Some sharp players, really good players, will attack the opponent who is the best player, knowing that that person is likely to be the biggest threat in the long run, even if they're not the current leader. Other players, a lot of other players, may pursue vendettas or have other reasons for not caring about winning. My brother, for example, says he plays to make sure I don't win. And I knew somebody whose brother said he played to help somebody else win. So think about it. In general, the more player interaction in a game, the more leader bashing is possible. In a game with no player interaction, which would obviously not be a conflict game, leader bashing is impossible because there's no way to affect the other player. And of course we have all levels in between. So you might ask what the best balance of interaction and no interaction in your game is to avoid excessive leader bashing. Here are 5 ways to make it harder to attack a particular person, that is, attack the leader. And I'm going to go through these individually, so I just have this list here, and we'll move on to geography, or geospatial relationships is the more broad term. For example, in the game Diplomacy, which is about World War I, it's impossible for England to attack Turkey or Italy or Austria early in the game. Russia and England actually have an interface around the north, ignoring the weather. Those nations that it can't attack are too far away and have other nations in between. And that's the most common limitation to leader bashing. It just can't be practical. Now, how would you do that in a card game? Well, you'd allow attacks only against adjacently sitting players, as in Bang, or perhaps somebody who's sitting 2 away as the game progresses, also as in Bang. So you put geospatial barriers of some kind in the way of attacking whoever you want. Another way to avoid leader bashing is to make it unclear who the leader is. If you don't know who the leader is, how can you be sure you're attacking the leader? Now, that usually requires some secrecy or hidden information, of course, but you have to remember, if something can be tracked, there will be players who track it. That's perfectly legitimate. If it's not hidden at any stage, it's not hidden at all. Now, some designers don't have that philosophy. I do. An example of the implementation of this, in the Hasbro version of History of the World, which is a conflict game, players draw secret tokens, only the owner sees it, for some of their victory points. So you may know that somebody has 2 of these tokens, but you don't know exactly how many points that is, and that tends to obscure, a little bit at least, who the leader is. Now, methods that allow players to collude or cooperate are going to lead to more leader bashing. You know, the basic version of this is let's you and me gang up on the leader. But if there's no way for players to help each other, leader bashing is going to be less. As in Euro games, which are usually parallel competitions where each player is doing his own thing or her own thing, and they can't affect each other significantly. Another question is whose benefit? When one player acts to pull back another, the leader, the other players benefit. Well, a player seeing that may choose not to go after the leader, but do things that will benefit him more than other players, all the other players. The player will have to compare what others will gain compared with what he or she gains in attacking the leader. Another situation is where you hurt yourself when bashing the leader. You risk gaining less than the other players than you and the leader, and that might not be true in zero-sum games, but in many games it can be. So rather than automatically attack the leader, a player has to decide what benefits them the most. Do they get more benefit from improving their own position, or do they get more benefit from disimproving, if you will, the leader's position? So to sum this up, attacking the leader is desirable in multi-sided games up to a point to avoid a runaway leader. Runaway leaders make games boring. You have to decide where that point is for you. Thanks for listening.